Claire Bennett sat at her desk in the temporary U.S. Embassy annex, the glow of her laptop illuminating her face. She had been working late, sifting through financial intelligence files that had recently been flagged for anomalies. Every line of code, every transaction, was another potential clue in a puzzle that could unravel a shadowy network funding international terror cells. She rubbed her eyes, trying to ignore the tension crawling along her shoulders, unaware that danger was already watching her, waiting for the perfect moment. Across the narrow street, hidden behind a crumbling rooftop wall, a sniper adjusted the scope of his rifle. The scope lens reflected the fluorescent lights from the building across the way, hunting in on the faint movement of Claire's figure. He had been tracking her for days, memorizing her habits, learning her timing. Every breath she took, every flick of her hair had been recorded. This wasn't personal, it was professional, and he intended to make it clean. The sniper's gloved hand steadied the rifle. Through the scope, the red dot hovered just above Claire's temple. A faint smirk appeared on his lips. He imagined how simple it would be, one squeeze, one exhale, one death, and the mission would be over. But he didn't notice the second shadow in the distance, higher than his vantage point, invisible to him but deadly. Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cole of the United States Navy SEALs leaned over a laptop inside a darkened mobile operations van 3 blocks away. He had been tracking unusual thermal signatures across the city for hours. One anomaly had caught his attention, the sniper on the roof. He watched, analyzing angles, distances, and trajectory possibilities. "Target confirmed," Ethan muttered under his breath, his eyes narrowing as he tracked the hostile operator through multiple drone feeds. His team had been anticipating an assassination attempt, but this level of preparation was chilling. The enemy wasn't reckless, they were precise. And Claire, the young intelligence analyst who had stumbled onto a set of financial records, was their target. She didn't even know it yet. Back on the rooftop, the sniper adjusted for wind, making micro-corrections to his aim. He exhaled slowly, letting the cool night air fill his lungs, steadying his heartbeat. He pressed his finger to the trigger. Time slowed. In that moment, he could almost imagine the headlines. "American intelligence analyst assassinated. Operation complete." He didn't know it would never happen. Inside the van, Ethan's fingers hovered over the controls of a specialized SEAL counter-sniper rifle. The opposing scope glowed on the monitor as the sniper lined up his shot. 3, 2, 1, Ethan counted quietly. "Take it." A suppressed shot cracked the night air, almost too quiet to be heard from the street below. The sniper on the rooftop jerked violently and collapsed forward, the rifle clattering against the concrete. His eyes went wide in shock. He hadn't even pulled the trigger before death reached him. From behind a corner, another SEAL operative observed the spotter, who had been attempting to call in coordinates to secondary teams. Before he could finish, a second round struck him precisely between the shoulder blades. 2 threats neutralized in under 3 seconds. Inside the annex, Claire felt a sudden chill, the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. She paused, glancing nervously out the window, sensing that something had shifted in the night air. But she dismissed it, focusing back on her laptop, unaware that her life had just been spared by a team she couldn't yet imagine. Ethan exhaled, keeping his calm. "Too clean," he muttered to his team. "They're professionals. This wasn't a random shot." He expanded the drone feeds, scanning surrounding rooftops and alleyways. 3 more heat signatures appeared in strategic positions, clearly planned overwatch points. Whoever had sent the sniper had more in mind than a single shot. Claire finally received a notification from her supervisor, an urgent evacuation order. She glanced at the time and realized she had been at her desk for over 6 hours. The message made her stomach twist. There had been chatter, intelligence whispers, that something was amiss, but she had never imagined she was the target. Outside, the streets were quiet again, eerily so. The normal hum of city life felt muted. Ethan observed the surrounding thermal feeds, noticing patterns that indicated a well-coordinated strike plan. Whoever had targeted Claire had anticipated multiple escape routes, secondary snipers, and rapid response teams. They had studied her routine, predicting exactly when she would be vulnerable. Phase 1 complete, Ethan said, speaking into his earpiece. But this is just the beginning. Eyes open, teams. His voice was calm, but inside adrenaline surged. They had saved her, yes, but the network behind this operation would not stop. They were clever, patient, and ruthless. Inside the annex, Claire gathered her belongings, still unaware of how close she had come to death. She moved quickly, following the instructions sent by her team. The evacuation route had been carefully prepared, thanks in large part to the SEAL team that now tracked every threat moving across the district. Ethan watched from above, scanning rooftops, alleys, and shadows. Keep her moving, eyes on every thermal signature, no mistakes. The city stretched silently into the night, but Claire's life had already changed. She would never again see a routine evening in the office as safe. And for the first time, she sensed the invisible war happening all around her, a war fought with precision, speed, and deadly intent. Somewhere across the city, another sniper team was already moving into position. Ethan adjusted his scope, fingers tightening on the controls. "They may aim first," he whispered, "but we shoot faster." Bennett moved swiftly through the dimly lit corridors of the embassy annex, clutching her laptop bag to her chest. Her pulse thumped in her ears, loud enough that she feared it might give her away. The evacuation route had been mapped out, yet each shadow made her heart skip, and every flicker of light triggered a surge of adrenaline. She was trained enough to remain calm, but something in the city night felt wrong, heavier than usual. Outside, the streets remained eerily quiet, but the air hummed with hidden tension. Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cole, watching from his mobile operations van, scanned multiple thermal feeds. His jaw tightened as he noticed 3 new heat signatures moving across adjacent rooftops. These weren't random civilians or stray cats. They were coordinated, highly trained snipers or assassins, each positioned for maximum coverage. The team had intercepted chatter in encrypted channels suggesting Claire was a primary target in an escalating operation. She wasn't just a random analyst. She had uncovered financial transactions linking an international rogue network to arms smuggling and covert operations. From a rooftop across the embassy, one of the hostile operatives adjusted his scope. He was unaware that the first sniper had been eliminated and that every step he took was being monitored. He exhaled slowly, trying to control the tremor in his hands. The mission demanded perfection. Every second mattered, every movement could mean success or failure. Across the street, a second sniper prepared to cover the first. The third moved toward the fire escape, intended as an extraction overwatch. It was a deadly chessboard, and Claire was the unwitting queen. Ethan's team, however, was a force designed for these high-stakes scenarios. They moved like shadows themselves, deploying tactical drones to map enemy positions and feeding live intel to Overwatch units. Each SEAL operative carried a specialized rifle, some designed for long-range elimination, others for rapid response urban engagement. Ethan had spent years coordinating teams like this, a precise balance of lethal force and protective strategy. He knew they had seconds, maybe less, before the enemy executed their plan. Meanwhile, Claire reached the exit stairwell. She glanced back once, thinking she saw a shadow flicker near the window. Her instincts screamed, but training held her still. Panic could be fatal. "Move fast. Stay low. Keep eyes on the path," she muttered to herself, trying to follow the evacuation briefing in her mind. She didn't know that Ethan's eyes were on her every step, the movements of the enemy carefully countered in real time. On the rooftop, the first operative in the new team took aim. His thermal scope zeroed in on a dark patch Claire just as she crouched in the stairwell. He exhaled, preparing to fire. But before he could squeeze the trigger, a shadow moved behind him. A suppressed shot cracked the night air. His body went limp, collapsing over the edge. Seconds later, another operative tried to radio in a warning, only to be eliminated by another SEAL sniper from a different angle. Inside the stairwell, Claire stumbled slightly at a strange echo but kept moving, unaware that death had passed her by twice in a matter of seconds. Ethan's voice buzzed quietly through comms to his team. Multiple threats neutralized. Focus. Watch secondary positions. The net is tightening. The new enemy team hesitated, realizing too late that the roofline was no longer in their control. The urban battlefield was shifting against them, with each movement countered instantly by unseen operators. One of the hostiles attempted to reposition to gain a better angle on Claire's evacuation route. A tactical drone followed silently, feeding real-time imagery to a SEAL sniper in a concealed location. Within moments, the operative was down, a precise, clean shot that left no trace of hesitation. Claire finally reached the armored vehicle waiting for her. She ducked inside, heart racing. Sweat slicked her hair to her forehead, but she forced herself to breathe. The streets were no longer familiar, they were a war zone. Ethan's team monitored the convoy from multiple angles, covering rooftops, alleyways, and even nearby rooftops across 2 blocks. Every shadow was checked, every thermal signature tracked, every potential threat eliminated before it could act. The driver, briefed only to move quickly and avoid patterns, started the engine. The convoy rolled into the narrow streets, engines low, lights dimmed. Yet even as they moved, Ethan noticed movement on the rooftops ahead, 2 more figures in coordinated positions. His fingers tightened on the comms. They've prepared secondary teams. Could be decoys, could be real. Moments later, the first of the new hostiles fired a single shot, a test. The bullet struck a wall inches from the convoy, sending sparks into the night. Ethan's voice cut sharply over the radio. Return fire only if necessary. Keep her alive. Precision is everything. The SEAL sniper, positioned in a hidden alleyway, measured the wind, the distance, and the trajectory in milliseconds. Another shot rang out, and the operative went down, unmoving. Inside the convoy, Claire felt the vibrations of distant shots and shrapnel hitting the pavement. Her hands tightened on her bag. "Why is this happening to me?" she whispered to herself, her voice trembling. Yet her training held her in check. Panic could kill faster than any sniper. Ethan monitored the entire pattern, realizing that the enemy wasn't acting randomly. They were executing a layered, synchronized operation, meant to isolate Claire and remove any protective forces. Their coordination was impressive and terrifying. But the SEALs were faster, smarter, and more lethal. Every move the enemy made was predicted, every threat neutralized before it could act. By the time the convoy reached a safe junction 3 blocks away, 3 more hostiles had been taken out, and no harm had come to Claire. She still didn't understand what had happened, but she felt the invisible hands of protection guiding her. Outside, the city stretched into darkness, alive with danger, and a deadly lesson had been made clear. There were forces she could not see, watching over her. Ethan leaned back in the van, taking a breath. "Phase 2 incoming. They won't stop," he said to his team. The next move would determine how many threats remained and how far the enemy was willing to escalate. He glanced at the live feeds once more. Claire was safe for now, but the game had only just begun. The night held its breath. The streets were silent, but in the shadows, other eyes were already moving, planning the next strike. And somewhere across the rooftops, a faint thermal glint warned. The hunt was not over. Claire Bennett's convoy moved cautiously down the narrow streets, the armored vehicle groaning under the weight of its protective plating. She clutched her laptop bag tightly, her knuckles white, sweat dripping down her temple. The adrenaline coursing through her veins was almost paralyzing. She had survived the first sniper ambush, barely, but her mind kept replaying the thought. They would not stop. Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cole, monitoring live thermal feeds from a mobile operations van across the district, noticed a spike in movement on nearby rooftops. His instincts screamed danger. "Secondary teams closing in," he muttered, his voice taut with tension. "Civilians in the area, be ready for collateral." Suddenly, a deafening explosion shook the street ahead. The lead vehicle in the convoy flipped violently, throwing debris into the night air. Claire's stomach lurched as she was thrown sideways. Smoke and dust filled the street, creating a chaotic wall of gray that obscured vision and amplified fear. Shouts, screams, and the smell of burning rubber filled her senses. Automatic gunfire erupted from alleyways, staccato bursts echoing off the buildings like the drumbeat of war. The convoy driver slammed the armored vehicle into evasive maneuvers, swerving to avoid fallen debris and stray bullets. Claire pressed herself into the corner of the vehicle, heart hammering. Each second felt like an eternity. On the rooftops above, enemy operatives moved with deadly precision. One crouched behind a low wall, adjusting the scope of his rifle. Another slid along a fire escape, preparing to intercept the convoy from the flank. Ethan studied the patterns carefully, coordinating his SEAL Overwatch teams to cover every possible angle. "Eyes on every movement," he ordered over comms. "Do not let them touch her. Prioritize neutralizing threats first." Within moments, SEAL snipers took position. One eliminated an operative aiming at the convoy's rear wheels. Another dropped a shooter attempting to climb onto a nearby rooftop. Each shot was precise, surgical, leaving no room for error. The enemy, though trained, was reacting to threats they couldn't see. Claire, unaware of the lethal precision covering her, felt the vehicle jolt again. Sparks flew as a stray bullet ricocheted off the armored plating, just inches from the window. Her stomach twisted, and she pressed her face against the cold glass, trembling. The driver's hands were steady, but Claire could hear the rapid clatter of gunfire outside. Ethan's voice cut through the comms, calm but commanding. "Alternate route Delta. Move through alley 7. Keep her covered. Counter-snipers engaged." The SEAL team deployed smoke grenades on intersecting rooftops, masking Claire's path while thermal imaging tracked enemy movements. Across the street, a hostile operative tried to reposition, unaware that a tactical drone had already mapped his route. Seconds later, a precise shot hit him squarely in the chest. Another operative attempted to fire from behind a rooftop ledge, but a second SEAL sniper eliminated the threat before the rifle could even be raised. The convoy continued its careful journey, swerving around debris and avoiding panicked civilians fleeing the chaos. Claire's mind raced. Every step was survival, every shadow a potential killer. She realized the entire district had transformed into a war zone in minutes. The streets she had walked countless times now belonged to life-and-death decisions. Ethan's eyes narrowed as he studied the drone feed. "They're trying to channel her into a kill box," he said. The enemy had predicted the most obvious escape routes and set traps along them, but the SEAL team anticipated each move, adapting in real time. For every threat appearing, 2 were neutralized before they could act. Claire felt the convoy jerk violently again. Another explosion rocked the street 2 blocks ahead. Flames and debris erupted into the night, sending shards of concrete into the air. The driver swerved, taking an unexpected route that threaded between buildings. Claire held her breath, her heart racing as they passed close enough to see terrified civilians screaming, ducking for cover. From the shadows of a collapsed stairwell, another hostile operative appeared, aiming directly at the convoy. Ethan had already calculated the trajectory and sent coordinates to a rooftop SEAL sniper. The shot rang out, silent except to those who heard the faint crack. The operative dropped instantly, his rifle sliding across the concrete. Inside the convoy, Claire didn't see the shots. She only felt the sudden absence of imminent death, a barely perceptible easing of tension, yet she knew instinctively they were not safe. The danger was ongoing, relentless. Another flash illuminated the street, a grenade, thrown from a distant alley, landing mere meters from the convoy. The SEAL team's Overwatch spotted it and fired, detonating the grenade safely before it could harm anyone. Sparks flew, and a cloud of dust obscured vision, creating another momentary wall of chaos. Claire's breathing was ragged. She gripped her bag as if it were the only thing keeping her tethered to life. She realized that survival was not about running, but about trust in the unseen protectors watching her every move. Ethan monitored every angle, his team coordinating like a single organism. Roofs, alleys, streets, drones, snipers, all moving in perfect synchronization. "They won't see us coming," he said quietly. But he knew the enemy wasn't finished. The network behind this attack was meticulous, patient, and ruthless. They would escalate, perhaps targeting her extraction points, or worse, creating a distraction to isolate her further. The convoy finally reached a small junction, a temporary reprieve. Smoke and debris still hung in the air. Claire's legs shook, but she forced herself to remain composed. Outside, the city was a battlefield, every corner a potential threat, every shadow a possible sniper. Ethan leaned back in his chair, reviewing the feeds. "This was only the beginning," he said to his team. "Phase 1 neutralized, Phase 2 incoming." He glanced at Claire through the drone's infrared overlay. She was safe for now. But he knew the enemy would regroup and strike again, faster, smarter, more deadly. Somewhere in the darkness of the city, enemy eyes continued to watch. The hunt was far from over. And Claire Bennett, unknowingly, had become the focal point of a war she had only begun to understand. Claire Bennett's armored convoy crawled through the narrow city streets, flames flickering along the buildings as smoke twisted into the night sky. Every corner held a threat, every shadow a potential assassin. She pressed her bag to her chest, feeling the cold metal of the vehicle beneath her palms, her knuckles white with tension. This was no longer a routine evacuation. It was survival in the midst of chaos. Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cole scanned live feeds from his mobile operations van. His team of SEALs had neutralized several hostile operatives already, but the city was alive with movement, shadows blending with the smoke, making it impossible to see everything at once. Drones hovered silently above, their thermal sensors piercing the darkness, feeding live images of enemy positions back to Ethan and his team. Suddenly, a small drone buzzed over the convoy. Unlike the thermal drones above rooftops, this one carried explosives, its purpose clear: detonate near the convoy, end the mission, and isolate Claire. Ethan's finger hovered over the counter-drone controls, calculating angles, speed, and trajectory. Seconds stretched into eternity. "Fire," he whispered. A SEAL sniper, positioned on an adjacent rooftop, took a single, precise shot. The explosive drone detonated midair, sending sparks and fragments scattering into the night. Claire flinched, feeling the heat brush past the vehicle, unaware that she had been moments from being shredded by metal and fire. But the chaos created cover for more hostiles. From the smoke-filled alleys, armed men moved in perfect coordination, weaving through debris and gunfire. One fired a burst at the convoy's rear. Another attempted to climb a fire escape toward the roof. Ethan tracked each movement with meticulous care, assigning counter-snipers to cover every angle. Inside the armored vehicle, Claire felt the vibrations of gunfire reverberating through the steel walls. The adrenaline pumping in her veins made it impossible to think clearly, yet instinct kept her alert. She saw a shadow dart across a broken window, followed by the reflection of a rifle barrel, and then nothing. The sniper had already acted. Ethan's voice came through comms, calm and precise. "They're trying to channel her into a kill box. Countermeasures engaged. Maintain formation. No mistakes." His team deployed smoke grenades along rooftops and alleyways, creating visual barriers while keeping thermal monitoring active. The enemy's movement slowed as they realized the city was no longer theirs to dominate. Claire's vehicle swerved suddenly, avoiding debris from a collapsed awning. The flames from the previous explosion cast flickering shadows on the walls. Civilians screamed, ducking behind overturned cars. Claire pressed herself into the corner, heart pounding, realizing she was in a full-scale urban war zone. Her life had been stolen from any sense of normalcy. Above, a hostile operative peeked over a rooftop ledge, attempting to get a shot at the convoy. He hadn't noticed the faint shimmer of a SEAL sniper lying in wait just 20 meters away. The shot was precise, clean, silent, and final. Another operative tried to flank from the side street, but a thermal-guided bullet cut him down before he could raise his weapon. Inside, Claire remained unaware of the SEAL's precise coordination, yet instinctively felt the protection surrounding her. She tried to focus on breathing, steadying herself as the vehicle weaved through the narrow streets. The city itself seemed alive, holding its breath, as if watching the unfolding battle. Ethan's eyes scanned multiple screens simultaneously. Roofs, alleys, stairwells, and windows were monitored and tracked. Each enemy movement triggered an immediate response, either neutralization or containment. He observed patterns forming in the attacker's coordination, realizing that this wasn't random. This operation had layers: sniper overwatch, drone diversion, flanking, and direct confrontation. It was professional, calculated, and deadly. Another explosion rocked a nearby street, sending a cloud of dust into the night air. One of the armored vehicles jolted, but the convoy remained intact. Claire's pulse raced, and her mind grappled with disbelief. She had never imagined a city she had walked through daily could become a battlefield so rapidly. She could hear gunfire, explosions, and shouting in the distance, but none of it penetrated the armored cocoon protecting her. From the rooftop opposite, another hostile operative prepared to fire a rocket-propelled grenade. Ethan's team spotted the flash in the feed immediately. "Shot blocked. Take your positions," Ethan ordered. Another SEAL counter-sniper intercepted, firing a single round that destroyed the weapon before it could be launched. Sparks flew, flames licked the concrete, and a wisp of smoke spiraled skyward, a small victory in a night already filled with terror. Claire's hands trembled as she finally glanced out a reinforced window. The streets were scarred, littered with debris, and alive with chaos. Civilians crouched in doorways, desperate to avoid bullets and explosions. She realized she had been caught in a fight far larger than herself, a battle she had only survived because unseen guardians were faster, smarter, and deadlier than anyone she had ever known. Ethan's voice came through comms again, his tone calm but urgent. "They won't stop. We need to maintain her path. No engagement unless necessary. Protect, prioritize, adapt." He adjusted feeds, marking enemy positions, anticipating secondary waves of attacks, preparing for every contingency. The convoy reached an intersection, briefly clearing the most dangerous stretch of the street. Claire let out a shaky breath, unaware that the city was still a hunting ground. Ethan monitored the rooftops, alleyways, and fire escapes, noting faint thermal signatures moving through the shadows. The enemy would regroup, of that, he had no doubt. But for now, Claire was alive. The SEALs had held the line. The night held its tension like a drawn bow. Flames flickered in distant windows, smoke spiraled into the sky, and somewhere beyond the chaos, another team of operatives prepared for the next phase. Claire's journey had survived this round, but the war in the streets was far from over. And above it all, Ethan whispered into the comms, "Phase 2 is coming. Stay sharp. Eyes on every shadow." The streets smelled of smoke, burning rubber, and gunpowder. Claire Bennett's armored convoy had reached a temporary reprieve, but the tension was suffocating. Every shadow seemed alive. Every distant sound could be the click of a rifle or the spark of an IED. She clutched her laptop bag tighter, realizing she had no control over her surroundings. Survival now depended entirely on the team protecting her. Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cole watched multiple live feeds, scanning the rooftops, alleyways, and intersections ahead. The SEAL team moved silently, like shadows themselves, every operator a phantom of deadly precision. One team covered the convoy, another flanked the suspected approach routes, eyes trained on thermal signatures that betrayed enemy movements. Every second counted. Suddenly, a gunshot echoed from an alley to the east. One of the SEALs protecting the convoy had been grazed by a stray round. Ethan's stomach tightened. Every casualty increased the risk to Claire. "Move! Suppressive fire, keep her moving," he commanded, his voice sharp and controlled. Claire felt the armored vehicle jerk as the driver swerved to avoid a flaming dumpster thrown into the street. Sparks flew across the asphalt as the vehicle narrowly missed debris. The SEALs on rooftops fired in calculated bursts, neutralizing threats before the attackers could take advantage. One operative fell just meters from the convoy, eliminated before he could fire another shot. From the shadows, new enemy operatives began to converge. Ethan's team had anticipated this: secondary waves, decoy movements, flanking positions. Thermal scans revealed hidden figures moving alongside civilian cover, attempting to blend into the chaos. It was a classic coordinated urban ambush, professional and ruthless. Inside the convoy, Claire pressed herself into the corner, heart hammering. She had never been this close to death. Her training kept her hands steady, but her mind raced. Why me? She thought. Why is this happening? She realized the documents she had uncovered, transactions, covert payments, smuggling routes, had painted a target on her back. She was valuable. She was dangerous to someone far more organized and powerful than she could imagine. Ethan's voice came over the comms, calm and precise. "We have wounded. Extraction Plan Alpha is compromised. Split teams to maintain coverage. Keep her moving, no exceptions." The SEALs moved with near-perfect coordination. One operative carried the wounded teammate to cover, suppressing enemy fire with controlled bursts from a tactical rifle. Another scaled a rooftop to intercept a sniper hidden in a window ledge. Each action was measured, lethal, and precise. Claire could only watch through the small window of the armored vehicle, feeling the invisible protection that surrounded her. The convoy rolled toward a narrow side street, the only viable escape route given the chaos of the main avenue. Smoke swirled around them, masking their movement. But from a nearby rooftop, a hostile operative had already calculated the path and prepared to intercept. A thermal signature flickered on Ethan's screen: movement ahead. "Cover her left flank," Ethan ordered. A SEAL sniper fired from concealment. The operative never completed his aim. Another operative attempted to climb a fire escape to reach the convoy from above. He too fell, taken out before he could execute his plan. Claire's stomach knotted as the convoy swerved again, narrowly avoiding burning vehicles and scattered debris. She felt the protective force of the SEALs even without seeing them. Every shot, every movement, a layer of invisible shielding. She understood in that moment the discipline, training, and lethal precision that separated life from death in a battlefield like this. Suddenly, a group of hostiles attempted to surround the convoy from both sides. Ethan calculated angles, distances, and line of sight in seconds. Two SEAL operatives fired from hidden rooftop positions, neutralizing the threat before they could reach the vehicles. One was taken down by a counter-sniper, another by a team member hidden among rooftop ventilation ducts. The convoy driver, guided by hand signals and silent instructions from the lead SEAL on the ground, maneuvered expertly through narrow alleys, weaving around fallen obstacles and panicked civilians. Claire's breath caught in her throat as the vehicle narrowly missed a burning car thrown into the street by an unknown assailant. "Maintain formation. No one left behind," Ethan ordered, urgency in his voice. A SEAL operative moved swiftly to cover the wounded teammate, carrying him to cover while returning precise suppressive fire. "No man left behind," a principle drilled into every operator. Claire's eyes met the streets ahead, realizing the gravity of the situation. The enemy wasn't just attacking, they were hunting her. Every step she took was being calculated by unseen forces. And yet, for every move the enemy made, the SEALs were faster, more precise, and deadlier. An IED detonated on a side street near the convoy, sending debris into the air. Sparks and dust clouded visibility, but the SEALs had anticipated secondary explosives. Countermeasures neutralized the blast, and the convoy continued its path, narrowly avoiding further destruction. The city seemed alive with chaos. Civilians ran in every direction, screaming and ducking for cover. Claire realized that this mission had turned an ordinary urban district into a war zone in minutes. Her heart pounded as the armored vehicle moved past overturned cars, flaming debris, and the sounds of distant gunfire. Ethan's voice cut sharply over comms. New threats detected ahead. Secondary overwatch confirmed. Keep her moving, every angle covered. They won't see us coming. He adjusted drone positions and thermal overlays, anticipating enemy movements before they happened. By the time the convoy reached a temporary safe point 3 blocks away, the SEALs had neutralized multiple secondary threats. Claire's hands shook as she looked out the window at the ruined street. Flames licked buildings, smoke spiraled into the sky, and debris littered every corner. She realized she had survived only because of the precision and coordination of unseen protectors. Ethan leaned back in the van, analyzing the feeds. Phase 1 complete, he said quietly. Phase 2 incoming. They'll regroup, but we'll be ready. His eyes narrowed on the streets below. Claire was alive for now. But the hunt was far from over. The enemy would escalate, and every second ahead would count. Somewhere in the shadows of the city, hostile eyes watched, waiting for the next opportunity. Claire Bennett had survived, but the urban war zone had only just begun. Claire Bennett's safe room door slammed shut behind her, reverberating through the reinforced walls like a steel warning. She sank against the cool metal, heart hammering in her chest, her mind racing through every possible scenario. The city outside had become a battlefield, and every sound, distant explosions, gunfire, the shuffle of feet, reminded her that death lurked just beyond the reinforced glass. Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cole monitored the building's perimeter from the SEAL Mobile Operations van. Heat signatures flickered on his screens, hostile operatives, highly trained and coordinated, moving through adjacent hallways and stairwells. He studied each movement carefully, knowing that one miscalculation could cost Claire her life. Suddenly, alarms within the safe room sparked to life. A faint click echoed from the door. Someone was attempting entry. Claire froze, her pulse spiking. She pressed herself flat against the wall, trying to make herself as small as possible. Whoever was outside was not acting like a random intruder. This was professional, precise, and calculated. Outside, a man wearing stolen credentials moved with lethal efficiency, bypassing the disabled security cameras and approaching the safe room. His rifle was suppressed, his movements deliberate. One of Ethan's SEAL operatives spotted him on thermal feeds. Target moving on Corridor 5. Approaching safe room, the operative whispered into comms. Seconds became an eternity. Claire held her breath, realizing the door handle was slowly turning. The intruder had almost reached the threshold. Ethan's voice cut through the comms system, calm but commanding. No shots unless necessary. Engage only if he threatens her. Keep eyes sharp. The intruder pushed the reinforced door. It burst inward with a sharp crash. Claire's body froze as the barrel of the rifle appeared in her line of vision. The seconds stretched impossibly, and for a heartbeat, she thought it was over. Then Ethan acted. He slammed into the intruder with the force of a freight train, knocking both of them to the floor. The gun discharged into the ceiling, sparks scattering across the reinforced room. The intruder struggled, pulling a hidden blade from his jacket, slashing wildly. Ethan blocked, twisted, and overpowered him with the strength of years of training. One decisive motion disarmed the attacker and left him incapacitated. The room fell silent except for the labored breathing of the two combatants. Claire remained pressed to the wall, trembling, too shocked to speak. Over comms, Ethan's voice was calm but urgent. Clear the corridor, check for secondary threats. She's unharmed, but stay alert. They're still out there. He knew this was far from over. The enemy had secondary teams, decoys, and reinforcements converging from multiple directions. Every moment mattered. Claire finally forced herself to breathe, her hands shaking as she hugged her laptop bag. She realized the intruder had made it past every layer of the embassy's defenses, bypassing cameras, alarms, and security personnel. She had been seconds from death, and only the swift intervention of the SEAL team had saved her. From Ethan's van, the operator monitoring the safe room corridor scanned the area carefully. Thermal signatures indicated more movement in the building. Hostile reinforcements were attempting to converge on Claire's location, trying to overwhelm the security layers. Secondary teams incoming. Roof access and stairwells, Ethan said, calculating angles. Prepare intercepts. Keep her safe at all costs. The SEALs moved silently through the hallways, covering every approach. Their communication was minimal, precise, and deadly. Each step was measured, each movement a potential life-or-death decision. Claire's fear was palpable. She whispered to herself, trying to process the night's events. The snipers, the explosions, the drones, the sudden attack in her safe room. Her life had been reduced to mere seconds of survival, guided by the unseen protectors she barely knew. In the corridors outside, hostile operatives tried to regroup. One fired blindly toward the safe room door. Another attempted to breach from the ventilation system. Ethan's team countered instantly. Suppressed shots cracked. The first attacker was neutralized, the second incapacitated without raising alarm. Efficiency and precision defined the SEAL response. Claire could hear the faint echoes of footsteps retreating, the shuffle of bodies down the hallway, the heavy breathing of men trained for combat. She understood in that moment the difference between being hunted and being protected. The SEALs weren't just faster, they anticipated, neutralized, and adapted with near-prescient accuracy. The room was momentarily calm, but Ethan knew better than to relax. He monitored drones above the building, tracking movement on adjacent rooftops. Thermal feeds showed distant heat signatures converging, indicating the enemy was preparing a new assault. "Stay low, stay inside. Extraction team inbound," Ethan said, his voice calm but layered with authority. He instructed the convoy to reposition, create diversions, and deploy suppressive cover in the streets outside. Every operative had a single priority: keep Claire alive, no matter the cost. Claire's mind raced. She realized that in this battle, every second counted. Her survival depended entirely on timing, precision, and the lethal skill of those protecting her. She pressed herself to the floor, trying to steady her shaking body, while Ethan coordinated the complex chessboard of attackers, counter-snipers, and reinforcements. Minutes felt like hours. Every shadow outside the reinforced walls could have been death approaching. Every click, every whisper of movement was a potential threat. Claire clutched her bag tighter, whispering to herself, "I have to survive, I have to survive." Finally, Ethan's voice returned over the comms. All threats neutralized in the immediate corridor. Extraction route clear. Move now. The safe room door was unlocked, and Claire stepped out, her legs trembling, into the corridor that had moments before been filled with lethal danger. Every step was guided by the SEAL's precise overwatch, every threat accounted for. But as Claire realized she had survived another deadly encounter, Ethan knew the enemy wasn't finished. The attack had escalated, and the network behind it was relentless. They would return, faster and smarter, and the next phase would be even more dangerous. Claire had survived seconds from death, but the war in the streets, the shadows of the city, and the deadly hunt for her life were far from over. The streets of the city were a labyrinth of fire, smoke, and chaos. Claire Bennett's armored convoy moved cautiously, engines low, tires crunching over shattered asphalt and debris. Flames licked the sides of overturned cars, and distant sirens wailed, mingling with the echo of gunfire. Each second felt like a lifetime. The enemy had regrouped and was converging, determined to complete their mission. Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cole's eyes scanned multiple feeds from the mobile operations van. The SEAL team had already neutralized dozens of threats, but he could see new thermal signatures moving into the district from rooftops and alleyways. They were the last wave reinforcements sent by the network orchestrating this attack. Professional, deadly, and relentless. Claire pressed herself against the armored vehicle's wall, clutching her laptop bag as though it were a lifeline. Her breaths came in short, rapid gasps. How long can this last? She whispered to herself. Her mind replayed the snipers, the drones, the explosions, the intruder in the safe room. She realized she had survived only because the SEALs were faster, smarter, and more precise than anyone she could imagine. Ethan's voice came over comms, calm but commanding. Final wave incoming. Positions locked. Engage only when necessary. No one leaves the perimeter unprotected. The SEAL team moved like ghosts, silent, lethal, and coordinated with terrifying efficiency. Every rooftop, alley, and stairwell was covered, every angle calculated. From a high-rise across the street, the first hostile operative of the last wave raised his rifle, aiming directly at the convoy. His finger tightened on the trigger, confident, certain. He didn't see the faint shimmer of the SEAL sniper lying in concealment 20 meters away. One precise shot and he collapsed, rifle sliding from his hands. Seconds later, another operative appeared on a fire escape. The same result, neutralized before a single round could be fired. Claire watched in awe, realizing that the invisible protectors surrounding her were performing feats she had never thought possible. The city around her had become a war zone, yet the convoy moved through it with surgical precision. Flames flickered in windows, smoke spiraled into the sky, and debris littered the streets, but none of it touched her. Ethan analyzed the last wave carefully. The enemy was professional, some of the best trained, the most coordinated he had ever seen, but they were still reacting to his team's movements. For every offensive action they attempted, two were countered before it could be executed. Suppression, containment, elimination. The SEALs operated with ruthless efficiency. Suddenly, one of the enemy operatives attempted a daring maneuver, running along a rooftop to flank the convoy. Another fired a grenade launcher at a side street, trying to create a distraction. Ethan's operators reacted instantly. A sniper's round took out the rooftop runner, while another operative neutralized the grenade threat with a controlled detonation. Sparks flew, flames surged, and the chaos was contained. Inside the convoy, Claire's pulse raced as she felt the vehicle jolt under evasive maneuvers. She pressed herself into the seat, gripping her bag tightly, realizing that even survival now required trust in forces she couldn't see. Every shot fired outside, every life taken by the SEALs, was a layer of protection for her. Ethan's comms crackled. Check all perimeters. They may attempt one last direct assault. Keep her covered. No mistakes. Thermal scans revealed movement near a nearby intersection. 3 more hostiles attempting a coordinated push. The SEALs reacted instantly. 2 snipers eliminated the threats before they could take aim. Another operative moved from rooftop to rooftop, creating a secure path for the convoy to proceed. Ethan adjusted drones and sensors, anticipating secondary movements, predicting each possible attack vector. Every enemy action was met with a counter before it could become a threat. Claire glanced out the window as the convoy turned a corner. Flames reflected in broken glass, smoke filled the streets, and distant gunfire echoed like thunder. She realized she was witnessing a battle she had no control over, yet somehow she remained alive. The precision of the SEALs was staggering. Every shot, every movement, every decision had been a life-or-death calculation, executed with terrifying accuracy. The last wave pressed harder, trying to surround the convoy. Ethan's team anticipated every maneuver. Suppressive fire from hidden positions forced the attackers to retreat into cover, while counter-snipers neutralized anyone attempting to reach the convoy. The streets became a deadly chessboard, each move by the enemy countered instantly by the SEALs' lethal coordination. Inside the armored vehicle, Claire finally allowed herself a slow exhale. The convoy had survived the final wave, the streets now eerily quiet except for distant sirens and crackling flames. She understood now that her survival had depended entirely on the skill, speed, and precision of the Navy SEALs protecting her. She was alive not by chance, but by design. Ethan leaned back in his chair, analyzing the aftermath. All immediate threats neutralized. The last wave has been contained. Extraction route clear. His eyes scanned the city, knowing the network behind the attack was still out there, planning, waiting for the next opportunity. Claire looked at him through the comms overlay, shaking. I don't understand. How did you know where they were?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan's reply was quiet, almost a whisper. "We watch. We anticipate. We act faster than they can. That's how you survive." As the convoy rolled toward a secondary extraction point, the destroyed streets illuminated by sporadic fires, Claire realized she had been spared multiple times, each near-death moment erased by unseen protectors. The city had become a battlefield, and yet she had survived. Ethan's team covered every angle until the convoy reached a secure location. Claire stepped out, legs trembling, the weight of the night's events pressing down on her. Behind her, the SEALs checked perimeters, ensuring no lingering threats remained. The night was far from over, but for the first time, Claire felt a measure of safety. She had survived the last wave, a testament to skill, precision, and deadly coordination. Somewhere beyond the city's shadows, enemy operatives had learned a harsh lesson. The SEALs did not hesitate, and they did not fail. Claire had lived through the fire, the explosions, the gunfire, and the terror. And as the flames of the city flickered in the distance, she understood the terrifying reality. She had been targeted for death, and the only reason she was alive was because the protectors were faster than fear, sharper than bullets, and relentless in their mission. Claire Bennett stepped out of the convoy into the dim glow of a secure perimeter. The city behind her still smoldered, streets littered with debris and shattered glass, the remnants of a war that had erupted in minutes. She shivered, both from adrenaline and fear, realizing that survival had come at the edge of a knife. Every heartbeat, every second of hesitation could have ended her life. Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cole scanned the perimeter from the mobile operations van, eyes sharp behind night vision goggles. His team of SEALs secured every rooftop, alley, and potential vantage point. "This is it," he muttered under his breath. "Final sweep. No one gets past us now." Claire looked at him through the comms overlay, voice trembling. I can't believe I'm still alive." Ethan's response was quiet, almost somber. "You survived because we don't wait, we see what others can't, and we move faster than death itself." But the battle was not yet over. Thermal feeds flickered, revealing movement beyond the perimeter. Ethan identified 3 figures moving with tactical precision, attempting a last desperate strike to eliminate Claire. They were the elite operatives, the ones the enemy had saved for the endgame. The SEALs moved like phantoms. Suppressive fire erupted, and one operative was taken down before he could reach the perimeter. Another attempted to flank via a rooftop access point, only to be eliminated by a sniper perched with near-perfect concealment. The final attacker hesitated, realizing the kill box had closed around him. Inside the safe zone, Claire pressed herself against the reinforced walls, heart racing, aware that the last threats were still alive but trapped. Ethan's team coordinated silently, ensuring no angle was left unguarded. Each movement was lethal, precise, and premeditated. The enemy's best attempt had failed against superior skill and preparation. Suddenly, a faint click echoed from a nearby alley. The last operative attempted a desperate IED detonation, aiming to breach the perimeter. Ethan's eyes narrowed as he tracked the device through drone footage. Without hesitation, a SEAL operative deployed a countermeasure, a precise intercept, neutralizing the threat with no risk to Claire. The city outside was chaos, but within the perimeter, the SEALs maintained control. Claire's breaths were ragged, realizing she had survived wave after wave of attacks. From snipers to drones to intruders inside safe rooms, every near-death moment had been prevented by unseen hands. She finally understood the lethal precision and coordination of the Navy SEALs who had protected her. Ethan activated the secondary extraction route. Armored vehicles, strategically positioned, created a corridor for Claire to move safely out of the danger zone. "Move," he ordered. Every operative on the perimeter shifted positions, covering blind spots, anticipating every potential threat. Claire stepped carefully into the armored vehicle, clutching her laptop bag tightly. The convoy moved slowly but decisively, leaving the ruins of the urban battlefield behind. Flames reflected in the broken glass, smoke twisted toward the sky, and the distant echo of gunfire slowly faded. She felt a weight lift, though the memory of near-death experiences lingered. Ethan monitored the final sweep. Thermal scans confirmed all threats had been neutralized. No hostile operatives remained within the vicinity. "Clear," he announced into comms, voice calm but firm. "Extraction complete. Zone secure." Inside the convoy, Claire exhaled for the first time in hours. Her body shook with exhaustion and relief. I survived," she whispered, almost in disbelief. She realized the gravity of the night's events, how close she had come to death, how skilled her protectors had been, and how fragile life could be when shadowed by unseen enemies. Ethan glanced at her through the comm overlay. "Survival isn't luck," he said quietly. "It's preparation, skill, and the ability to act faster than anyone else. That's why you're alive." The convoy rolled toward a safe location outside the city. Flames and debris receded behind them, leaving only scars on the streets as silent testimony to the battle that had unfolded. Claire looked out the window, reflecting on the terror, the explosions, the snipers, the drones, and the intruder in her safe room. Each event had brought her to the edge, yet here she was, alive. For Ethan and his SEAL team, the mission was far from ordinary. Every action had been measured, every threat countered before it could strike. The operation had been a perfect execution of lethal precision and calculated protection. They had neutralized the enemy while ensuring the survival of a single key target, Claire Bennett. As the convoy reached the extraction point, Claire stepped out into the safety of reinforced walls. She looked back toward the city, still smoldering in chaos, and realized she would never see it the same way again. The invisible war she had stumbled into had left marks she could not forget. Ethan debriefed his team quietly. "All objectives complete, she's safe. No casualties beyond what was necessary." His eyes lingered on the city skyline, aware that the network behind the attack would regroup, adapt, and perhaps strike again. But for now, the battle was over. Claire Bennett had survived. Claire turned to Ethan through the comm overlay, voice still trembling but resolute. "I don't know how to thank you or all of you." Ethan's response was calm, almost understated. "You survive, that's enough." For Claire, the night had been a lesson in the fragility of life and the deadly efficiency of those trained to protect it. She had been hunted, targeted, and nearly killed multiple times, yet she had survived because the SEALs were faster, smarter, and more lethal than any enemy. Every moment, every breath, every near death had been countered by those unseen hands that moved with deadly precision. The city behind her was scarred, but Claire had been spared. She had survived an urban war zone, snipers, drones, explosions, and infiltration attempts. And as the convoy moved further from danger, she realized the truth. She had been targeted for her discoveries, but the protectors had ensured she lived to see another day. In the calm after the storm, Claire understood the reality of the battle she had survived. The SEALs didn't just react. They anticipated. They neutralized threats before they became deadly. And they ensured no one was left behind, not even someone as ordinary as her. The night ended with Claire safe, alive, and forever changed. The city still burned. Shadows still lingered, and somewhere in the darkness, enemies plotted. But she had survived, and that was all that mattered. Ethan watched the convoy disappear into the safe zone. For now, the mission was complete. But the lesson remained clear. When enemies aim for death, SEALs shoot back faster.